بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We're still studying the fiqh rule, the legal maxim, al-qa'ida al-fiqhiyya, which states that certainty is not removed by doubt. And there are many sub-rules under it, and we spoke about a number of them. Today we will speak about al-aslu fil abda' at-tahrim. Al-aslu fil abda' at-tahrim. The default when it comes to sexual intercourse and what precedes or follows that, it is prohibited. So now we want to know about certainty. And where is the certainty and where is the doubt in this sub-rule? This rule deals with sexual intercourse. So is it permissible for a man just to have any relationship with any woman he wants? No, this is logical. So it is prohibited to have anything that precedes such sexual intercourse, such as chatting, socializing, looking, or what comes afterwards. So if it's prohibited, then how can one make it halal? Simply as Allah stated in the Quran, that those who protect and preserve their private parts except from their wives and their right hand possession. So these are the only two legal ways to have such a relationship. Other than that, it is totally prohibited. How can I implement this in fiqh? Well, this is easy. For example, I'd like to marry someone from America. Halal or haram? You can't do that providing the conditions are fulfilled. You cannot have any relationship. We're talking about the halal relationship. So if she's Jew, Christian, or Muslim, and she's not related to you, then it's halal. Now, if I wanted to marry someone from my relatives, my cousins, my uncle's daughters, halal? It's halal. Unlike what the people think elsewhere, that marrying a cousin is prohibited. It's not in Islam. Huh? I get a lot of people asking me from America that a cousin is a brother. This is not in Islam. A cousin is a total stranger. That is why the Prophet ﷺ married his cousin, Zainab bin Jahsh. And that is why he gave his daughter to his cousin, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So this means in Islam, there is no problem in that. Now, when I proposed, a woman came and she said, I suckled you, I breastfed you, along with one of your uncle's 20 daughters. My uncle has 20 daughters. So I suckled you and I suckled one of these daughters. But I forgot which one. Okay, you forgot now. 19 are halal for me to get married, or 2. And 1 is haram. What to do? Apply the rule, which says, al-aslu fil abda' at-tahrim. The default when it comes to sexual intercourse and whatever precedes or follows that is prohibition. So the whole 20 become haram for you to marry because you do not know which one. If you were told that one of the girls in a village suckled with you, again the village becomes haram for you. But if it becomes a city, if it becomes a country, if someone came to you and said, I suckled someone with you in America, were you crazy? 300 million will become haram? No, they say that this is too much. But if it is something that is limited, that can be quantified and measured, because of the other possibilities are available, then this becomes haram. So this is related to certainty, is not removed by doubt. Another rule they obtained from the main rule, certainty is not removed by doubt, is لا ينسب إلى ساكت قول ولكن السكوت في معرض الحاجة إلى البيان بيان. What does this translate to? A statement should not be attributed to anyone who is silent. So they're deliberating, they're saying you did this and you did that, and I'm not speaking. And they say, this is the evidence that he did it. No, a statement should not be attributed to someone who is silent. Rather, silence is only considered an explanation in case where an explanation is necessary. So if the judge asks someone, now he has to speak, and he said, did you kill that man? And the guy says, you did kill that man, didn't you? And he doesn't speak, he doesn't reply. So now this rule applies certainty. And certainty is if I don't say anything, you cannot accuse me of saying something unless by not saying something you are approving it. And this is found in the case of marriage. We have something in the Sharia, yani women are either a virgin or not a virgin. Not a virgin is the one in Arabic known as thayyib. She's the one who was married before or was widowed. And now she has no husband. She is known as thayyib. And the one who had never got married before, she's known as bikr. So the Prophet tells us, alayhi salatu salam, a hadith that we can apply on this rule. And we understand this rule from it. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam told us that when it comes to a thayyib, when she gets a proposal, she has to speak out. But when a virgin gets a proposal, her silence is her approval. A woman who was married before is not as shy as a virgin. So that's why a woman who was divorced or widowed, and the father comes to her and says, my daughter, Mr. So-and-so has proposed to you, and he's, mashallah, wealthy and handsome, and a student of knowledge, and mashallah, this and that. If the thayyib, the one who was previously married, does not speak, he cannot give her in marriage. She must declare. She says yes or no. Why? Because she's not as shy as a virgin. Now, a virgin, someone who's like 17, 18, 19 years of age, the father goes and says, your cousin has proposed to you, and he is this and that, so what do you say, my daughter? And she looks in shyness and smiles and doesn't reply. The Prophet tells us that this is her consent. This was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, girls of like this say, how old is he? How much does he earn? Does he have a car? Is it convertible? Does he have this? This is not the right way. This is not how girls are supposed to behave, especially those who were not married before. This is just a joke, huh? Don't think that all the girls are like this. But unfortunately, haya or bashfulness or shyness has been taken away from a lot of the Muslims because of their drifting away from religion. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that haya is from iman. And this is why the Prophet told us when a virgin is asked and she does not reply, this is considered to be an explanation, an approval. But in the case of someone who was previously married, she has to declare that, and her silence is not taken as an approval. One of the rules that deals with certainty and doubt is that certainty is not removed by doubt. What about imagination? If someone imagines something, can we apply this to him? No. Imagination does not remove certainty. Can you give an example? Yes, someone goes to a country and it's time for salah. He doesn't ask about the qibla. He doesn't go and check the masjids where they are built so that he knows the qibla. He doesn't check the sun to know the direction from east, west, north, and south. He doesn't do anything. He just looks, yes, I'm going to pray to this direction. Allahu Akbar. Certainty is not removed by doubt, and this person, the rule is لا عبرة بالتوهم. The rule is لا عبرة بالتوهم. And it translates to no consideration should be given to that which is merely imagined. So this individual imagined that the Qibla is in this direction, he prayed. He didn't do his due diligence. He did not do his homework. Like, what happens if I truly go to a country, no masjids, no one to ask about direction, no compass? Now all smartphones have Qibla direction, but hypothetically speaking, nothing. What should I do? Should I pray or not pray? No. If you do your best, you try to think, okay, now the sun is here and it's noon, so I think the Qibla is this direction. You did your homework, you tried your best, and you prayed and you discovered that your prayer was in the wrong direction. Should I repeat? No. Because you did what you almost thought that it was certain. But this individual who is only imagining, this does not have any basis, and that is why we cannot apply it. Certainty says that you cannot do this because imagination would not avail. Likewise, if a judge listens to the testimony of the witnesses and they go, the following day he has to give a verdict, and he says, no, I'm not going to give a verdict. Why, judge? He says, maybe they will come and say we change our mind. No, this is maybe. Is it a fact or imagined? It's imagined. So you don't have the right to delay the verdict without any legitimate reason, or because someone died, you will reject his testimony, because maybe if he did not die, he would have come and said, I changed my mind. No, this is imagined. You have to apply what is certain. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back.
Scientific notions in the glorious Quran are among its endless aspects that can testify for the divine nature of this noble book. These scientific notions are probably the best addressed to the people of our time. I am Zaghlul Al-Najjar. Please join me in this program to discuss some aspects of the scientific notions in the glorious Quran.
سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق.
I created the universe.
Appreciate the word-to-word authenticity of scientific notions and proven facts mentioned in the glorious Quran 1400 years ago in Scientific Notions in the Glorious Quran. Every Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat telecast at 8:30 a.m. India on Peace TV. Osama El Shami.
How can we get our children ready for the month of Ramadan? Sharing the stories of what the Muslims have been through in the past, in particular the first generation.
Nazir Irfan Al Mujahid.
Make this Ramadan very special to them.
Your taqwa, your righteousness, your goodness.
I want you to tell me about your experiences from the very first Ramadan that you experienced as a new Muslim.
The first Ramadan I experienced was amazing.
Umar Debua.
When I embraced Islam, it was like I was prepared. You know, Allah prepared me for something that I had no idea. It was an amazing experience. Beautiful.
My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome to our program, The Straight Path.
Build your character on the path of the Quran and Sunnah in The Straight Path. Every Wednesday and Saturday at 3 p.m. and repeat telecast at 1 a.m. India on Peace TV. Analyze your mistakes.
Have you ever tried to overcome your anger?
Realize your weakness.
Do you find it difficult to control your tongue?
Diagnose your moral sickness.
Have you ever felt that your intentions are corrupt?
Learn the steps essential to nourish our souls in Purification of the Soul. Next on Peace TV.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, one of the sub-rules states that لا عبرة بالظن البين خطأه, that no consideration should be given to a doubt which is clearly incorrect. This means that if you do something and after doing it, you discovered that it was wrong, this means that it has no basis to it, and hence there is no consideration to it. Give us an example. I come and I find a bucket of water, and I believe, applying the other fiqhi rules, that water is pure. And I ask and people tell me this is pure. So I make wudu and I pray. And after I finish praying, someone comes and tells me, no, the water is not pure. There is a najasa in it. And I discover that he's right. There is a najasa in it. What to do? The rule says that no consideration should be given to doubt which is clearly incorrect. Now, I've discovered that what I thought was certain becomes not certain, and therefore I have to make wudu again and I have to pray again. Because this doubt now is not a doubt, it becomes a certainty that the water is not pure. Now, one would probably argue and say these rules are confusing. No, they're not confusing. 90% they are correct, but there is always this 10% that is an exception. So if you master these rules and always have them at the back of your mind, you can know what is right and what is wrong, generally speaking. But without knowing what these rules are based on and when to apply it and when to have an exception, you cannot have that. So these rules are only beneficial for someone who has gone through fiqh, who has covered the fiqh, and then he knows that, yes, this rule 90% applies on this chapter, in this book, in this subject, but the exceptions are 1, 2, 3, 10. It becomes very easy, but as a reminder, it's a very beneficial science. The last rule says, الْمُمْتَنِعُ عَادَةً كَالْمُمْتَنِعُ حَقِيقَةً. What can't happen usually is likely what is impossible to happen. What cannot happen usually, because it's not usual, then it is as if it's impossible. And this is good for a judge, for example, because when there is an orphan and his uncle is the trustee, and the father of the orphan left a lot of money, and when the boy reached the age of 18, the judge says, transfer the money to the boy. And the uncle says, I spent all the money on him to ensure that his upbringing is good. So I spent all the money on him. And when the judge looks at the boy, he finds him that he's not well fed, not well clothed, lives in an apartment in a very bad district of the city, doesn't have any property, the bank account is zero. So this is something that is unusual. If you claim that you have spent money on that orphan, he should have been in a better situation, clothes-wise, health-wise, car, house, bank account, money. But when he has nothing, and he has nothing to show, this is usually an indication that it is not happening. And this is why it is impossible. I will not believe the uncle. The judge will not believe the uncle. So this is what means what cannot happen usually is like what is impossible to happen. Because it's not usual to spend money and not see the traces of it. Then this is impossible. What he's saying is impossible. Now, these are parts of the sub-rules that we have learned before. coming from the second major fiqhi rule, which is certainty is not removed by doubt. There are another set of rules. The 10 rules that we have taken, they're stemmed directly from certainty is not removed by doubt. There is something that we understand by reversing it. So how do we reverse it? Certainty is not removed by doubt, but it is removed by certainty. So this is reversing it. And they have come up with a number of rules. One of them is whatever is certain is not removed except by what is certain as well. And we gave an example for that. Someone thinks that he divorced his wife. What is certain? No. One word. No, this is negative. I want the affirmative. Marriage. What is certain is marriage. Okay, so I will not remove this marriage except when I am certain that there is divorce. So what is certain is removed by what is certain. Water is pure. If I see something that is an impurity, I will definitely remove it, the purity, and say that now the water is impure. What is certain is removed by other certainty. Also, sometimes we understand things not being said. Your understanding for things has no value compared to something that is said. Example, I rent a car, and everyone understands that when you rent a car, you're allowed to take passengers. You will not rent a car for your own. I will have my friend, I will have my children. This is logical. Sometimes I rent a car and I put cargo in it, my bags, my stuff, to transport them from one place to the other. So this is understood. Everyone knows this. But if it is stated in the contract, or the man who is leasing me said, do not take any passengers except you, or do not transport any luggage with you, and I defy his orders and I go against them, do I have the right or not? They said no, because what is stated, what is said, is more stronger than what is understood. So this certainty, which is I can take whatever I want with me, is removed by another statement that takes this understanding out and tells you you are not allowed to do certain things, whether carrying passengers or carrying stuff. And finally, they say one of the rules that are understood by the reversing, they say that if something is coming out or stemming from evidence, then this issue is decisive when there is a probability. So because we have an evidence or something that is so strong, it allows us to cancel something that normally would be accepted. Example, if someone writes a gift, if I give a gift to my son, what's the ruling on that? It's halal, no problem. But if I give the gift on my dying bed to my son, they cancel it. Why? Because I am on my dying bed, this takes the ruling of a will. And it is not permissible to make a will to someone who would inherit. The Prophet said, alayhi salam, la wasiyyata liwarith, that someone who will inherit, you cannot write a will. So if I was in my health and I give my son a gift, no problem. But because there is this possibility, there is this chance that I am writing it because I'm on my dying bed and he's inheriting, the scholars would make this not permissible, because this certainty, which usually I can give gifts away, is cancelled by something that is probable, that is, I am giving a will. So by this we conclude, inshallah, the second major rule, which is certainty is not removed by doubt. And next time we meet, inshallah, we will talk about the third major rule. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.